And then you start realizing with this way of life that when your willpower is high, your insulin's low. And if your insulin's high, your willpower is usually low. And so you start getting a little more compassionate curiosity.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fasting Method podcast. This is Terri Lance, and I am joined this week by Coach Lisa Chance. Lisa, how are you doing?
Doing good, Terri. Excited to talk about my favorite subject, books.
I was just going to say, every time you come here, I'm excited about what we're going to talk about, but today it's just the tip top of excitement because we're going to talk about both of our favorites, books. I don't know though, Lisa. I think I give you more credit for numbers of books read and ability to remember what you've read than I even give myself credit for. You are kind of my, I don't know, not hero maybe, but you're a role model for me about reading and books.
Books are like old friends to me. So when I revisit them and reread them, and I often will read a book and also listen to a book. And I find I get different things out of them when I do them either way. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who don't know, I do TFM, the Fasting Method Book Club, every Monday morning. They really are my old friends. And there are certain books that we do every year.
And so as we talk today, Lisa, you and I touched base before starting to record here. We thought maybe we would share some about some of our favorites, some that seem to be client and community member favorites, things that we think can have big impact for people. I know that also you and I both have a list of books that we want to read because there is kind of a never-ending supply of great books. Now, I remember as we were chatting earlier, you mentioned that you have your books kind of piled up around you right now while we're recording this.
I brought them into the room. Usually my office is clean, but I brought them in. All the towers are stacked here.
I love it. Mine are all on a bookshelf near me, but many of mine are on the phone because I do love to listen to them on Audible. So tell me a little bit, Lisa, kind of what are your just broad categories of the books that you like to read related to this journey?
Well, I'm kind of a blend of, a lot of people think I'm the science coach, right? She's going to cover the specifics about type 2 diabetes and that kind of thing and autophagy and everything. But really, I'm really kind of half and half. I like the woo-woo. And that's one of the books on my to be read stack is Why Woo-Woo Works. I really like both. And I try to mix it up every month. Like, there's certain books that I do read every year, like usually Self-Compassion by Dr. Kristen Neff, which you told me about. Love that book. Atomic Habits. We do that every year. And then we usually do one of Megan or Dr. Fung's books. But there are certain books, if you were starting out and you really wanted to get the food, like what should I be eating? All right, I know we're diet agnostic here at TFM, but what should I be eating? The books I highly recommend that you would get would be Metabolical by Dr. Robert H. Lustig. That is fantastic. We did that for 2 months. It's a big book, 2 months. I had one guy in the group who bought like 20 books and gave them away for Christmas. It was such a powerful book. He gave them to all of his friends and family. But there are other ones. Good Energy by Dr. Casey Means is good. Learning those things like ultra-processed people, The Craving Mind, 2 Meals a Day by Mark Sisson, if you really want to understand what to put on your plate. Unless you're reading Dr. Fung's book or Megan's books. Megan has a great book, The Essential Guide to Intermittent Fasting for Women. If you are shy of fat or shy of salt, I would highly recommend you read the Doorstop Toe Breaker, The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teichl, The Salt Fix by Dr. James D. Nicolantonio, or The Cholesterol Myth. And you know what? I don't have that one around me. I can't remember who that is by. It's two guys. One is a doctor and one is not. So it's by Dr. Johnny Bowden and Dr. Steven Sinatra, who's the cardiologist. So those kind of things where, because this is a paradigm shift. Our way of life is a paradigm shift. So if you're at all hesitant on what we're doing and you really want the why of it, those are good books.
Awesome. I will jump in on that theme a little bit. Mine is a little less specific about what to eat, but a little bit more about relationship with food and problems with food. So a couple of my favorites would be When Food is Comfort, Nurture Yourself Mindfully, Rewire Your Brain, and End Emotional Eating by Julie M. Simon. I know you have done that one before in book club because I got to join you for a meeting. And that is one of those books I probably have read once a year, every year for the past 3 or 4 years, because there's just so much of value in it. The Hunger Habit, Why We Eat When We're Not Hungry and How to Stop by Judson Brewer. He is a psychiatrist that I love his other books, and so was very excited when this one came out.
And then there's some oldies but goodies like The Case Against Sugar.
Oh, yeah.
And Breaking Up with Sugar. You recommend that one by Molly Carmel, right? Those are all really good books to get you started. Even Wheat Belly, if you're really trying to, what do I need to do? Because I think that brain gut axis is very powerful. You got to fix both. I don't know how you got through to me when I was eating sugar, Terri, but you did. You whittled your way through. But I think not being on those substances, ultra processed food, flour, sugar, and not getting enough fat, that your brain can't change to growth mindset. I really do believe that.
In that vein, I also have on my list some of my favorites also would be, it sounds a little weird when I say this, but these are actually ones about alcohol recovery and addiction and looking at these related to food and sugar addiction. So for me, that would be Rational Recovery, The New Cure for Substance Addiction by Jack Trimpey. And then This Naked Mind, Control Alcohol, Find Freedom, Discover Happiness, and Change Your Life by Annie Grace. These both have been instrumental to me in my own journey and my work within TFM with clients and community members. This Naked Mind, that book actually is the kind of tipping point for me when I decided to stop sugar for good a little over a year ago. So that was the book I was reading at the time that really prompted that.
Well, I just read the Rational Recovery. I just read that one finally. And it just like clicked something inside of me. And I know Coach Jamie has done The Naked Mind. I know she really likes that one. I haven't dived into it. I do remember you saying every sentence in that book is a mic drop. Boom. Each and every sentence.
Absolutely. The other one that I would say has been a favorite of mine for a while and probably evident by the fact that I used to talk about it nonstop at TFM, related again to what we eat and our relationship with food. And that is Never Binge Again. Reprogram yourself to think like a permanently thin person, stop overeating and binge eating, and stick to the food plan of your choice by Glenn Livingston. He has a newer version of this. I think it's called Defeat Your Cravings. But one of the reasons I like this is there are just so many little kind of catchphrases or terms that he used that we can talk about so easily in a large group. How do you refute that? And what food rule is that? And just these things. And I know I didn't put this on my list, but I know you really liked, like might be a strong word, but his workbook, I love my workbook. Yes.
Yes, I love it. I love it. We took 2 months to go through that, and there's 33 squeals in there, and I think I have them all. And it really helps to do the workbook. I'm one of those people, I think you got to do the work. I mean, yes, you got to clean up your environment. You got to clean up your brain. You got to clean up your gut. But I think it's easier to do the work when you do those things. And there's Limitless too. I really liked Limitless. There's so many of them that I like. Now there's a couple of them that I have, and I've tried to read them, and I'm like, I can't do this as a book club. I'm no good at this myself. How can I do it as a book club? One of which is Melissa Urban's Boundaries. I read that first chapter and I just went, whoa, it just blew me out of the water. Then another one is Boundary Boss by Terri Cole. And so eventually I hope to one day be able to get to deal with boundaries, but I'm not good at setting boundaries.
Well, keep reading it and maybe you'll feel ready to share it. Have you been doing everything you know how to do, fasting and eating the right foods, and yet you are still struggling with truly reaching your weight loss or health goals? TFM has just launched a 3-month immersive coaching experience with me to help you break through the mindset and behavioral challenges that have been holding you back from making the true progress you have been striving to reach. Each week, we will meet for a 90-minute session where I provide a brief lesson, and then we all have the opportunity to process how you can utilize this insight and implement the necessary changes to continue your progress. There will also be journaling or reflection prompts to keep you steadily integrating your evolving mindset and behavior strategies throughout. To secure your space in this coaching experience, click on the link in the show notes or look for Beyond Knowing, Living Your Transformation under the Programs tab on our website. I look forward to seeing you there. Another category of kind of how I laid out my list of books is a lot of books about mindset, self-talk, all of that. So of course on mine, one of the ones that I highlighted as one of my top choices, as you already mentioned, is Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff.
Definitely.
Definitely everyone should read that. And it has nothing to do with food, but almost everything we do with food can be tied back to our work on self-compassion.
She also has Fierce Self-Compassion, which really gets more into women being more assertive. I've read a few chapters in that, but we do self-compassion every year. I think it's mandatory for this program. It should be.
Yeah. For me, the Fierce Self-Compassion actually is on my want to read list. I haven't gotten to it yet, so it's definitely on my list. But another mindset book that I have only been introduced to in the past few months, and it actually came through a TFM meeting. A community member said, oh, Coach Heather recommended this one book, and it's really good, and that is The Slight Edge. And I think you said you're going to do that one in the future.
Yes. It's by Jeff Olson, and I believe we're going to be doing that pretty soon, relatively soon. And Coach Heather has agreed to be our guest speaker to answer Q&As. Sometimes when I have a guest speaker, I have them on the last Monday of the month after everybody's read the book, just for a good dialogue.
It's such an important one. I feel like these mindset books, like I find one that I really like and I talk about it and just use that theme as much as possible. And then all of a sudden, someone introduces me to another one. It's like, oh, now this is my favorite. Yes. So Lisa is holding up Mindset by Carol Dweck. And we talk a lot at TFM about a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. And again, this book, if you read it, it has nothing to do with weight loss. It has nothing to do with food or anything, but it really has to do with the power of whether we have a growth mindset and see that we can develop and grow and acquire new skills, or do we see like, yeah, I just wasn't handed that skill when I was being incubated, so nope, I can't do that. I think it makes a huge difference. So that's probably one of my all-time favorite books, not just related to TFM, but I just think it's so powerful. So The Slight Edge, Mindset, and then another one, maybe moving more into another category on my list of self-sabotage, is Healthy Habits Suck.
I was going to say that.
How to Get Off the Couch. Yep. The subtitle is How to Get Off the Couch and Live a Healthy Life, Even If You Don't Want to. This one, I remember I was listening to it for the first time last summer. I was driving back and forth around the time I was having cataract surgery. And so I had to go out to an ophthalmologist's office that's an hour and a half away. So lots of book listening time for me. And this was the book. And it was like mic drop in the car. I'm like turning and looking at cars going past me like, did you hear that? Yes. So I love that book. And one of the reasons I love it is because I feel like so often we as people, you and I, Lisa, people in the community, listeners to this podcast, we start to get kind of down on ourselves that we struggle with things like, I know I should work out every day. Why don't I? I know that food makes me feel sick. How come I keep eating it? So the title of the book alone, I think, clears all that up. Healthy habits suck.
Do them anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, really, he talks in the book about choice point. You're either moving toward the outcome you want or away from the outcome you want. And I really like that. There's a really excellent book called Stop Self-Sabotage by Dr. Judy Ho. I tried to read that book. It took me the third time to get into it because that's like heavy excavation for me, just like the workbook to self-compassion. There is a workbook to self-compassion, and that's heavy excavation. You have to take a deep dive, like, your feelings about your body and everything. Whereas healthy habits suck. It's right there. It's deep enough that it's not superficial, but it's like getting you to take a look at what are your values, what are your tools, what are your practices that you're going to use to, get to where you want to be.
Absolutely. And for those who want to read something related to self-sabotage and really enjoy some salty language and are not easily embarrassed or turned off by really salty language, the book called Stop Doing That Shit, End Self-Sabotage and Demand Your Life Back. Trust me, that is the most mild sentence of the whole book. He has another one that I really like too. But, Lisa, I tend to be someone who a client just told me like, yeah, Terri, you're just kind of soft and nice when you say these things. This guy is not soft and nice when he says these things. He is just like in your face, kind of shouting it in the audible version, at least. So I sometimes need books like that too, that really just call it out, stop doing that shit. So, like I said, if you are not going to shy away from the language, that's also a powerful one.
Coach Jamie has a book she recommended for book club, which is Let Them by Mel Robbins, I believe. And I got it and I was like, oh, wow, I have such a rescue complex. I don't know if I could do this. That would be back there in the pile with Boundaries and Boundary Boss. It's like, probably I do need to read it. It tells me right there. But I did get it. I got it on both Kindle instead of hardback. I got it on Kindle and on Audible.
Going back to your category of learning more, reading more about why and how what we eat matters, another book that I recommend for a lot of people who might be struggling with depression or anxiety or have other loved ones who are really struggling with mental health issues, Brain Energy, a revolutionary breakthrough in understanding mental health and improving treatment for anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, and more by Christopher Palmer, I think is a great book to really see what we put into our mouths really makes a difference in things. And so oftentimes people are like, well, I'm eating problematic foods because I'm anxious. Well, let's work on getting rid of the anxiety so that you don't need an unhealthy coping strategy. Or again, I'm depressed. Yes, your way of eating may be greatly contributing to that depression, which also leads me then to a book that's on my want to read list. I have it and haven't read it yet, but it's Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind, a powerful plan to improve mood, overcome anxiety, and protect memory for a lifetime of optimal mental health by Georgia Ede, who I just love. I've gotten to hang out with her at conferences, so I can't believe that this book is still on my to be read list, but that is definitely one for me.
It's on mine too. It kind of moves around on the top of the pile for which to do next for book club. But I will tell you that Dr. Chris Palmer was the star of the Metabolic Summit that was last year. He was so popular, so many questions, so many people attending that it is a very powerful book.
Love it. I have another to be read book that I'm looking forward to at some point, and it's written by Kelly McGonigal, and I just like a lot of her work. I think she does a really good job of expressing things and works on the things that I think really are important. She has a great book. One of my favorite books of hers in the past was The Upside of Stress, Why Stress is Good for You and How to Get Good at It. So Kelly McGonigal has a book called The Willpower Instinct, How Self-Control Works, Why It Matters, and What You Can Do to Get More of It. So that's got to go on I got to raise that on that list to get in there sooner.
It's a good book. I read that one. I did. And I think the stress one she wrote was, we kind of did a preliminary book club way back when to see if it was going to take or not. And that was that book. We didn't really have a formal meeting type of thing, but we were over in the community forum.
Nice.
Doing that. It's a good book too.
It's funny as we're going over these, it's kind of funny for me, Lisa, because I'm on my screen looking at my list. I'll make this list available for those of you who are interested in what books I have recommended to people. But one of my categories is habit change. And the first one in that category for me is Atomic Habits, an easy, proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. If you listen to my other podcast with Daisy, we talk about this all the time. James Clear, he doesn't know it, but he's probably one of my closest friends because he is in almost every conversation I have. But I was listening to that book in 2019. Again, I listen to a lot more books than I read nowadays, but I was listening to it as I was driving across the Big Island in Hawaii. And I was on my way to a low-carb conference where I was going to get to see Megan and other TFM people. And I was all excited and I was listening to this great book. And I thought, oh my gosh, everyone at TFM has to read this book. It should be required that if you want to join for membership, you have to take a quiz that indicates that you have read Atomic Habits. And then I kept listening. And again, it was like, I'm looking at people driving by me like, did you hear what he just said? And I thought, oh my gosh, we need a book club. We need a place for people at TFM to come and talk about these books. Because this one to me was such a pivotal book in how I think about habits. And maybe something that I hadn't really given much thought to until I listened to this book. So Atomic Habits is on the top of my habit change section. And again, it kind of led to the development of, hey, let's have a book club at TFM. But you weren't at TFM yet, so we didn't have a Lisa to have the book club yet.
It was kind of funny because I had selected to do Atomic Habits again. I think this is our third time doing it. And then I'm just like, oh, Terri and I are on the same wavelength again, because you had done podcast number 209 and where you did your top 3 takeaways from Atomic Habits. And I have a fond memory of The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, because it was the first kind of habit book I read. I do love Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, but Atomic Habits is it's just so much in there, and worldwide it is very, very well known.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love all these things. And then of course, there's The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. And there's also Taming Your Gremlin by Rick Carson. And both of those get into kind of being the observer of this. Instead of beating yourself up over this stuff, using compassionate curiosity and just starting with an awareness of what you did, the choice you made, what might have triggered it. And then that ties in nicely with the habits because so often, and if I can say this on the podcast, I don't know if I can say this or not, but motivation is a fickle bitch.
We're going back to that salty language here, folks.
If you can build it as a habit, it becomes more and more natural. You don't have to rely on willpower alone. And then you start realizing with this way of life that when your willpower is high, your insulin's low. And if your insulin's high, your willpower is usually low. And so you start getting a little more compassionate curiosity.
Another book that I have talked a fair bit about, starting with Monday Mindset podcast, but then have talked about it at TFM, is a book called The Gap and the Gain. A High Achiever's
That's on my list.
A High Achiever's Guide to Happiness, Confidence, and Success. And one of the reasons, everyone knows me, knows I'm going to talk mindset more than anything else. But I think why this one is so important is we have often been indoctrinated to be evaluating ourselves, assessing ourselves from the perspective of the gap. What we haven't done yet, what we're not good at, what we haven't accomplished, goals we've not met versus the gain. Have I lifted tremendously heavy weights at my trainer's gym? No. But did I do 3 incredibly hard workouts this week? Yes. That's looking at the gain rather than, but I don't have big muscles now. Okay, that's the gap. And it's defeating. And so I think some of these books, if people are like me, sometimes you don't even read the whole book. You just need to understand the kind of real premise and get a good enough handle on it. And that was one for me that started with looking at a podcast episode on it, but then looking at the book of, oh my gosh, yeah, I've learned to evaluate from that perspective of the gap, all that I should have done by now instead of looking at the positive.
There's I don't know what you call it, a company that is called Short Form. And you can go in and get a short form of that book. I get their newsletter. It's just what I need, more book suggestions.
But the really nice thing about that is some of these you really only need the short form.
Some of them are too long.
Too long, don't read kind of thing. Give me the gist of it. And then if I need more, I will go back. I actually do that. You mentioned before you sometimes like to be reading it and listening to it. I often will get the audio version first and listen to it. And then especially if it's one that I'm going to talk about in the book club with you or talk about a lot, then I want the hard copy of it to be able to find those pages where those sections are talked about and kind of keep looking around there and see what I can make sense of there. So I often have the audio version and the bookshelf version.
There's The Dorito Effect. That was the book I was trying to think of. You read that one. I haven't read it. What they're putting in our food, right, to get us to buy.
It's scary.
Yeah.
People who study that part of consumerism know more about the human brain than most psychiatrists because they really know what gets the brain to buy, to think a certain way, to be allured to something.
They actually increase the blood flow to the amygdala and decrease the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, which is your CEO part of your brain. They're targeting it specifically. It's like, oh my goodness.
Another book that's on my to be read goes back to the topic of self-sabotage. And this is a book that, again, a community member recommended. I got the download, but I haven't gotten into it yet. It's called The Mountain Is You, Transforming Self-Sabotage into Self-Mastery by Brianna Wiest. So that's another one of my want to read, hopefully this year.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. I saw that on your list and I was like, ooh, that looks intriguing.
Yeah, one of our community mentors shared that one with me and I thought, putting that on my list.
Just a few plugs, just for a couple of them that I don't know where they would fit in. Anatomy of a Breakthrough, by Adam Alter, and then The Glucose Revolution by Jessie Inchampe. Is that how you say it? I don't know how to say her last name. Sorry, I have to spell it. And then, of course, Forever Strong, if you want to get into the physical thing, Forever Strong by Dr. Gabriella Lyon. She talks about how lifting weights is important for your metabolic health throughout your life, not just when you get older or when you're, want to be buff, but also when you first start with your period. It helps the transition of all the female hormones because your muscles are your metabolism. So it helps through all the different stages of life. That's a good one too. There's so many. Another book I've never tackled is The Body Keeps Score. It's like, I think I would need like 5 Terrys on call in the room. Talk about a therapy session.
And nobody got time for that, Lisa.
I know. But it is a good book if you're daring to dive in that river. So
absolutely. I also was thinking earlier when I was looking through my books on my phone, Glucose Revolution was one of my very exciting books when I first read it. I was so excited because I thought they're very real, easy to implement strategies that people can use. And I liked that it wasn't all about weight loss. It was about just managing glucose better to feel better, to not get hangry and to not have all these, ups and downs based on our glucose levels. So I loved that one, and I have not added it yet to my list as one I recommend, but I definitely enjoyed that one.
I have a client, and she and her husband both wear CGM. And she was like, I don't understand it. We eat the exact same meal, the exact same portion, and he doesn't spike on his blood sugar. And I'm like, you got to read this book. It really is N equals 1. And maybe it's not your food. You got to eat the food you love that loves you back.
That's right.
And that's one reason why we're diet agnostic at TFM. We get vegetarians, we get carnivores, we get pescatarians, we get flexitarians, we get everybody. We get people on the autoimmune protocol. That's one of the best things that you can do to figure out your food is do an autoimmune protocol. It's one of the best things you can do. I took all these lab classes and things like that about what to test on your gut. And I think I mentioned we read Healthy Gut, Healthy You by Dr. Michael Ruscio. But all of these groups say that the best thing you can do, better than any lab test, is to do an elimination diet. Nobody wants to do that. So that's what all these books will tell you, right? Is you got to do the work.
That's right. That's for sure.
There's one of the books is called that, isn't it? One of the books you like is called Do the Work or something. I've forgotten who that's by.
By Nicole LaPera. How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LaPera.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So I skimmed through that book and found it quite helpful. But yes, you got to do the work.
Absolutely. And on the note of wrapping up at the end of our conversation here, one last book I'll put a little plug in there for is called Finish.
We're going to be doing that in January. I know, because I was thinking about doing it for December. And when I read it, I went, oh, no, this is for January. This is how you start.
All right, Lisa. Well, it's always fun to get to talk to you, and especially fun that we got to talk about something that we're both so passionate about. I recommend to everyone, if anything that we talked about today sounds interesting to you, check it out. See if it's a book that you also really connect with. And sometimes what I find is that when I get a recommendation from someone, I start it and I'm like, this really isn't, I don't like it. I try and get through at least the first couple of chapters. And if I need to put it down, that's okay. But often by doing that, I find something else. So please don't feel like you have to be wedded to any of these titles that Lisa and I share. Of course, we are right and they're really good. But check it out, see if it fits for you. And if not, go ahead and move on to something else that does fit for you.
Thank you so much for having me, Terri. This has been fun.
Yeah, very fun. Well, I will look forward to you coming on again for another fun topic. And until next week, everyone, have a great week, and we'll be back with another episode. Take good care.